News when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Nathan Hager.
And I'm Karen Moskow.
Karen, we start with big tech and a big number, $650 billion. That is how much four of the biggest U.S. tech companies plan to spend this year on capital expenditures. Bloomberg News has calculated the spending plan by Alphabet, Meta Platforms, Microsoft, and Amazon will set a high water mark for spending by any single corporation in any one of the last 10 years. Shares in Amazon fell after the e-commerce giant announced its latest earnings and plans to spend $200 billion this year on AI, data centers, chips, and other equipment. CEO Andy Jassy says the money will predominantly go to the company's cloud unit, and most of that spending will be for AI workloads. Speaking on the earnings call, Jassy said it will be worth it.
When I look at this, what's happening, it's kind of unbelievable if you look at the demand of what you're seeing already with AI. But the lion's share of that demand is still yet to come in the middle of that barbell, and that will come over time.
And Amazon shares are down almost 8% after Andy Jassy spoke, with the spending set to weigh on profits. Poonam Goyal covers Amazon for Bloomberg Intelligence.
They need to invest, right? We know that Amazon has to continue to invest in cloud services. It needs to invest in AI. So there's a lot of catch-up that needs to be done here. I think the long-run narrative here is still good. The underlying results were solid across both AWS and retail.
And Bloomberg Intelligence analyst Poonam Goyal notes that some of Amazon's capital expenditures will go toward its effort to compete with SpaceX's Starlink internet service by placing satellites in low Earth orbit.
And Karen, the AI disruption trade has the S&P 500 on track for its worst week since April, and the risk-off mood has extended to crypto as well. Let's get the market roundup from Bloomberg's John Tucker. John, good morning.
Yeah, Nathan, this is not unlike that DeepSeek sell-off a year ago. Investors have been spooked by developments on a couple of fronts. The rollout of those models from Anthropic that threaten to make software services redundant, alongside the eye-watering spending plans of the big tech companies you were just mentioning. Now, the tech-heavy NASDAQ Composite Index now a 3% year-to-date loss. The risk-off mood, it did extend to Bitcoin. The selling picked up steam this week in line with the unwinding of leverage bets and broader market turbulence. Nobel laureate Paul Krugman sees a possible crisis of faith in crypto.
I think it's a big wake-up for people that, maybe this isn't actually going to be an enduring asset.
Sell-off briefly dragged Bitcoin to a more than 50% retreat from the October peak. Just yesterday, investors pulled $434 million from U.S. exchange-traded funds for Bitcoin. And now this morning, stock futures are modestly higher, and Bitcoin is up 4%, close to $66,000 a token. In New York, I'm John Tucker, Bloomberg Radio.
All right, John, thank you. Let's turn to geopolitics now. And Oman said it mediated indirect talks between Iran and the United States over Tehran's nuclear program. In a post on X, Oman said its foreign minister met separately with Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, then with U.S. Mideast Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, President Trump's son-in-law. Bloomberg Economics Defense Lead Becca Wasser tells Bloomberg Balance of Power she has some concerns.
I am most certainly not optimistic. Really? And I think some of that is because of the firepower that we've seen massed in the region at this point in time. We've also seen Iran engage in some risky behavior, whether that is an attempt to seize a U.S. flagged tanker or whether that is having a drone buzz near the U.S. carrier in the Middle East.
And Becca Wasser is defense lead for Bloomberg Economics. The talks come after a chaotic week that initially saw plans for regional countries to take part in talks in Turkey.
And Karen, President Trump is calling for the creation of a new nuclear arms treaty with Russia as its existing New START agreement expires. A post on Truth Social, the president writes, quote, rather than extend New START, we should have our nuclear experts work on a new, improved, and modernized treaty that can last long into the future. Former Republican Congressman Patrick McHenry thinks it's a good idea.
I think we haven't addressed nuclear disarmament in over a generation here in the United States. I think it's a worthwhile endeavor. I think the complexity of this administration's foreign policy is not well understood by the market. Everything is interconnected. Russia, the Middle East, China, Russia, Ukraine, Middle East, China, Canada. All the trade conversations, all the foreign policy and Department of War actions, they're all connected.
Former Republican Congressman Patrick McHenry is now Bloomberg News contributor. He spoke on Bloomberg's Balance of Power as well, noting that New START was the last remaining major arms control treaty between the U.S. and Russia.
That's news when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Karen Moskow.
I'm Nathan Hager, and this is Bloomberg.